Call the meeting to order.
So in accordance with an act to implement provisions necessary to the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Maine in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, as enacted to read Section G1 MRSA subsection 403A, public proceedings through remote access during declaration of state of emergency due to COVID-19. This business meeting is being held with a mix of in-person and virtually through Zoom. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the on the Marana Cook YouTube channel. Due to the change in format of this directors meeting, please be aware that during the course of this meeting, the microphones of the viewing audience will be muted except during the identified portions of public comments at this meeting. For today's agenda, this is going to be item number 3. Part of this meeting is also a budget meeting, and citizen comment on the budget can be done at item number 2C. There's a chat feature in Zoom, but we will not be utilizing this feature for this meeting. If you have questions or comments, we respectfully ask that you contact the central office or email the superintendent or any other board member, and an answer will be provided as soon as possible. We ask for the public's patience during these highly unusual circumstances. Attendance and all votes will be done through roll call. So when your name is called, board members, please cast your vote with the 3 available options of yes, approved, no, disapprove, or abstain. So here we go. Let's do the roll call. Kim, we were notified from her that she would not be able to attend tonight. Wendy?
Here.
Dane, we were also notified that he would not be able to attend tonight. Kathy?
Here.
Melissa? We were also notified she would probably not be in attendance tonight. Alex?
Here.
Patty?
Here.
Rebecca?
Here.
Betty?
Here.
Sean? We also received notification from Sean that he might not be able to make it tonight. Gary?
Here.
And David?
Here.
Thank you. So we're on to number 2.
So in the viewing audience, is there any board members from the towns? What towns do we have?
Catherine Woodson from Reedfield.
Amy Black from Wayne.
Dawn Clifton from Manchester.
Chris Burgoyne from Reedfield.
Mac Hardy from Mount Vernon.
Is that it?
Thank you guys very much for attending tonight. I'm going to start by talking about a few updates. And as we're going along, what I would ask you guys to do is to signal to Diane McGregor using the chat feature. And what she will do is get our attention and pause to make sure that you have a chance to make your comment or ask your question. Hopefully that all makes sense to you. So use the chat feature, or if you're comfortable with Zoom and you know how to use the little emojis like raising your hand and such, you can use that, and Diane will monitor the chat. So hopefully that all works out well for everyone, okay? So in your packet, or excuse me, in your folder, board members, there are some budget-related items. The first one is the general school summary budget sheet. Wanted you guys to see that we have, or we continue to try to whittle down that number. Right now we are, and I know everyone kind of goes usually to the bottom line. What does that bottom line look like? So the grand total, if you go over to the second column from the right, right now the change we are currently at is $519,752, which translates to about a 2.75 increase. I want to let you guys know how we were able to reduce that so that you guys are aware of it. So our software, online programs, things like Zoom, Seesaw, Edpuzzle, Literacy Footprints, Alexia. Ruvena is also another one, the app that we use for tracking compliance with COVID. So that amounted to about $55,000. I am going to put those things in the ESSER fund grant. So it seemed like a natural fit to be able to move that over because a lot of that software is directly related to the things that we're doing to help address COVID. You'll see it on the agenda, the network. There's network monies that go along with our E-rate from a few meetings ago. Diane McGregor spoke about it. So about $78,000 we were able to pull out of that. And again, that will go right in the ESSER grant because we desperately need to upgrade those networks because there's a lot more traffic on them than they were originally intended for. So we've done that. We've also looked at taking $100,000 out for the laptop leases for, middle school and high school students. That also is going to go into the ESSER funds. It, again, feels like a natural fit. So we've reduced about $100,000 for laptops. And I'll just kind of piggyback on that very quickly. That number is still very fluid. We don't have that solid. But we know with confidence we can reduce at least 100,000 out of the local funds for that and shift that into the ESSER funds. So that, and then a minor adjustment, every little bit helps. About $5,000 for Alice safety training. It is not going to be funded by the RSC anymore. So we'll have our final year with that and we will look to transition into something else this year around that. So that's something that Tina Brackley, our high school assistant principal, has worked closely with me to be able to get up and running. So we will start looking at how to transition into another program that's a little bit more cost effective. And we have a few ideas for that already. So we'll make use of what we got for the remaining time here. So that's basically our reductions for up to this point. And like I said, that was able to get us down to about 2.75%. The next piece that's in there is we're giving you a first draft of our preliminary budget numbers. And this is the revenue side of the budget. And that's on the green piece of paper that's in front of you. I'll just walk you through. And again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You see the increase that we're getting from the ED 279, which is the state allocation that comes in. That was up about almost $62,500, which is very helpful. We're one of the lucky school systems that actually didn't see a huge reduction. So we're very thankful for that. The Educational Service Center we belong to, there was a slight decrease of $948. We use that money with the RSC to plan. We have 3 things that we're doing with them. And we're in the stage right now. I just had a meeting with them this afternoon, and we're in the stage right now where we're negotiating what that's going to be. But we also get Power School because we belong to the RSC. We have Power School fully funded by the state, which is a fantastic. It's worth the investment when it comes to that. The state national teaching funding is down $2,500. And that's the funds that we get for having nationally board certified teachers. And that changes every year because it's a process they have to go through, and we've had fewer teachers complete that process, a lot of it due to COVID. Tuition revenue, you'll see a fairly big increase right there. Most of our tuition comes from the town of Fayette for students in grades 6 through 12. We have choice with them. We'll talk about their contract on a little bit later in our agenda. What we're expecting right now is 4 Fayette students will be graduating as seniors this year. But coming into sixth grade, we're expecting possibly 15 students at this point. So that really helps us when you look at the tuition side of the revenue. Transportation, there's no change. We have $40,000 in there. I'm expecting that there's going to be a little bit more bus activity going into the spring with baseball, softball, and track because they're all outdoor activities. So I'm thinking that may go up a little bit, but we're going to be very honest in saying we're probably not going to spend that entire $40,000 because of we just did far fewer trips this year when it comes to that. So Medicare reimbursement, we don't do anything with Medicare reimbursement. Physical services and administrative fees is down $20,000. So those are fee services provided to other school districts with RSU 38 personnel. That's agreements we had with Fayette. And due to everything that was going on, we have basically pulled back from those. We had a technology agreement and a food service agreement with them, and we're in the process of transferring those back to Fayette at this point. They're going to take over those services for us. The gate receipts from sports revenue, as you can see there, there's no change, but there have also been no gate receipts at all. There have been no charges for sporting events at all this year. So that hopefully makes sense to you. Miscellaneous is down about $55,000. So these revenues are for the state agency reimbursement for foster children within our district that need special education programming, interest income, rental income. As you guys know, Wayne rents from us, insurance proceeds, sale of equipment, and other miscellaneous revenues. The additional balance forward is down a little bit, and this is an audit adjustment for superintendent agreements for students accepted from other school districts. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But there was a little less movement this year when it came to superintendent agreements. And then we last year we carried forward about $800,000, and we expect at this point to be able to carry forward about $800,000 as well. And we'll have a kind of better picture of that in the next couple months as to what potentially that number will look like as far as the hard and fast number. But it's kind of fluid right now. We're still in that stage where things are a little fluid there. So the next section is the property tax revenues that you'll see there. So required local dollar match is down a little over $167,000. So that amount is required to be raised by the towns based on valuation within each town and required mills for education that the state sets. So those amounts kind of vary a little bit year to year. Our local only debt, this is local debt for construction projects approved at referendum for each town for high school renovations. Again, you see that that's a pretty big number that it looks down. It's $579,000. So it's a pretty big number. But if you go down to the additional local dollars, we had to move the bond, the facilities improvement bond that we've been working from was actually categorized in local only debt, but it actually can't go there. It's actually supposed to be in additional local dollars. So that's why you see the 1.1 million there for that. So it's just been reclassed into where it belongs from that. So when you're looking at that the numbers at the very bottom of the page, last year's budget, and then that $519,000 matches what I shared with you on the first page. So we're continuing to work on that going forward. So I'm going to pause there because that's a lot of information on that page, and you may have questions, or even the select board may have some questions that they want to ask at this point. So let me pause for a second. Of course.
With the Alice program, I thought that originally was going to include like a train the trainer type program so that we would be able to train our own staff.
Yes, but it's actually a subscription service that we have to pay for year after year after year there's an online video portal, trainings and stuff like that. So we've talked to some law enforcement that are in this area, and they said they can still do that training and come to us, so we don't actually have to invest in the program, but we can get the training for free. So I was like, free is better than $5,000.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So, yeah. Betty?
I think it's a typo. Up at the very top, it says revenue area 2020 to 2021, increase, decrease. And that next column should be 21, 22.
We will get that fixed. Thank you. Oh, Bruce, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate. I'm assuming I'm heard. I hate people saying, "Can you hear me?" at the beginning of each piece, but that's kind of, I guess, the Zoom world. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate all the work you're doing and the work I'm assuming you will continue to be doing on refinement of the budget. So obviously, select boards zero right in on that 427 as really what we see, and correct me if I'm wrong, that would be the total local funds that would be raised by the 4 towns. Do you have the prorations on that yet, or can you provide that by email as a follow-up for the towns based on what the current sitting budget is?
Yes, we are actually, I have a question I need the board to weigh in on tonight. So we will actually present those at next week's budget, but we will make sure those get emailed out to all of the towns that are here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, you're right about that 427,000. That was the additional local.
And I guess a follow-up to that is every expense adjustment you make going forward and every revenue under any other line would lower that number.
Absolutely.
Well, I encourage whatever you can do in that area.
We are going to keep working on it for sure.
Yeah, and again, I'll just wrap up with a general statement. I think you're doing a very good job under extremely challenging situations, and the Maranacook schools are a real value to our communities. We see people moving in and so forth. Actually, that's in our town. We've seen quite a bit of that. But obviously, we've tried to keep our budgets, and I'm speaking only for my town at this point, but maybe for others, relatively flat because we don't know what the underemployment rate has been in our towns. We don't know. People have maybe dug into their savings deeper. So we are concerned about that, and we hope you share that concern too. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Bruce.
Anybody else?
Okay, so I've got one more piece that I would like to share with you. As I mentioned, and the question Bruce asked, we want to kind of complete the first draft of what things will look like, which is what we want to bring to you guys next year, have it broken down by towns, what each one is paying and stuff. So one of the things that we have discussed often, and it feels like we need to just get a consensus. I don't need a motion or anything like that, but I think we need to kind of get a consensus around this concept of how you want it presented. So the third paper you see in front of you is the district student prorations. So what we did is we took each town and broke it down for you so that you could see. So for example, Manchester has 152 students across the district, or that's just in the elementary school, right? I want to make sure I say this right, so I apologize.
Those are students attending Manchester
There
Elementary
we
School,
go.
but they may not all be Manchester
Right.
students.
Right. So if you follow that across, we have 152 students at Manchester Elementary School. 10 of them are here under superintendent agreements,
No, that's 10 additional.
10 additional, so it's 162. Thank you with that. Then you see going across how many Manchester students at the middle school and high school. And again, how many are there under superintendent agreements? And you see the total students that are there and what that breaks down to percentage-wise. So Manchester has 31.22% of the students in the district, if that makes sense to you. Follow that across for Mount Vernon, for Reedfield, and Wayne. And then the totals going across. So Mount Vernon accounts for a little over 21% of the students in the district. Reedfield is 35.7, and then Wayne is a little over, just a shade over 12% there. So then what we did is we looked at residents only, and this is where I'm getting to the question I'm going to ask in just a second. So then we put it together for residents only. What do those percentages look like? So if we factor out these superintendent agreements, this is how many students are resident only in that town and what the percentage is. So if you have all of the students, including superintendent agreements, 31.22% in Manchester, but if you take out the superintendent agreements, then it's 324 students, which is 31.21% students. Bridget, you want to add something in?
It also moves back to the town of students' residents. So if you have a student who lives in Mount Vernon but attending Manchester, this moves that student back to Mount Vernon.
Right.
And so Manchester is not being charged for the Mount Vernon student.
Right.
So it also does that.
Right. Go ahead, Alex.
For the tuition kids, how are they classified?
So tuition is totally separate. Okay, so they're not
in these.
factored into the cost of the town. Yep, good question. Yep, very good question. So my question to you guys is, in the past, when we've figured out what each town needs, we have always included superintendent agreements in that town, at the town level. So the question that I have for you guys is, would you like that to continue, or would you like us to build it based on just the students who are residents in those towns? So on one of them, what we've traditionally done in the past is we've included superintendent agreements. My question to you is, do you want to continue to do that, or would you rather use the resident-only count and take out the superintendent agreements? We do get money from the state for superintendent agreements, but this way, Bridget, you can jump in if I fumble on anything. But with this way, we'd only be charging towns for the I say charging towns, that's not the right terminology. We'd only be factoring in resident students. We would not be factoring in superintendent agreements.
Okay. And this is one of the numbers that we use when we calculate how much each town pays. Now, this is only this year, and our formula based on the reorganization plan is a 3-year rolling average. So I would not go back the 2 years prior and change those numbers. But going forward, if you want to use resident only for the current year, I would use these resident counts instead of factoring in the elementary school that the child attends rather than the town that they live in, and superintendent's agreements.
So I just did a fast calculation here. This 19,432 is what the total amount of the budget is. Off the other page. Grand total. And if you divide it by 1,089, it's 1,780 per child. Now, the tuition kids are coming in at a lower rate.
We're charging what the state allows us to charge.
Right. But every town has to make up that difference, is what I'm saying to you. So. To get to the number, you need to have some type of, that every town has to put money in. That's what you have to do.
But we have a formula in the reorganization plan that we legally have to follow. We can't change that,
I
Gary.
understand that. But what I'm saying to you is
Yeah.
Wayne puts out more money, Mount Vernon puts out more money per child.
Mhm.
And I'm saying those children should be spread against everybody. Because we have to pick up the difference. If right now, the 10,089, which is the total student count that we have, and if you divide it by that number, it comes out to 17,844. Somehow we need to work back in those other kids so that that number reflects something closer to what reality is. I don't care. And every town has to contribute.
Oh, Bruce, go ahead.
I may be a little dangerous because I did serve as the finance chair for this board, but it was in the last century, so that could be outdate me in my knowledge quite a bit. But, you know, one of the things that often happens, I think, in building these budgets is we forget about some intangible things that are unknowns. And one of those is the fact, and you probably don't have this number, is that there are superintendent agreements in other neighboring districts where students from our towns go with a parent, perhaps it's a teacher or something like that, to Winthrop or whatever. I don't know if you know those numbers, and I don't really care, or I'm not here to put you on the spot for it, but to Gary's point, there's somewhat of a balance that occurs across the state because state law is basically stating that we need to honor these superintendent agreements, and they're not done, in my background knowledge, in any way with an eye of taking in a lot of students, because it's obviously not a revenue line for us in totality. But is that a fair representation of the fact that there are other agreements that we're sending kids to other towns, and that's somewhat of an offset to our towns?
Yes, that is true. We have some coming in and we have some going out. That's a very fair characterization. And I will apologize, I don't know the number off the top of my head here, but I certainly can get that number and share it.
So you're saying in the top, we have some of our kids is listed up here, even though they're not in our school.
They're in
No,
our
no.
school, they just don't live in the town.
Right. But you have them up here?
Not the ones, not the superintendent's agreements that are going to other towns are not in this form.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to get back to, that number, so we can look at what the state gives us versus what it don't. And what the difference, every town, Reedfield, all of us, Wayne, Mount Vernon, Wayne and Mount Vernon has to pay more because we're an E1 or something like that type of town. Go ahead.
So I agree that this is kind of a discussion about a very complex formula. And I think originally we wanted to discuss looking at the reorganization plan again to see where we are, but due to not us having a full board, we weren't able to pursue that, but I would emphasize we should continue to pursue that in the future. Mostly just to benefit of just educating ourselves and seeing if there's any updates that are needed. But to get to my question, so as I see it, if we go to residents only, the town of Reedfield gets a decrease and it's distributed to the rest of the towns.
No,
Not really.
Well, so Reed Field is down 34% from 35%, and then Mount Vernon is going from 21% to 21.79%. So it is going up.
Yeah,
And
it
Reed
is,
Field is going
Just those
down.
two towns.
right. And the reason for that is the in-district transfers. So we have, I think it's 13 students from Mount Vernon that are asking to go to other towns, and the bulk of them are going to Reed Field. I believe 10, don't quote me on this, I might be off a little bit.
That's
It's
not-
either 10 or 11 are in Reed Field, one in Manchester and one in Wayne. So those other schools are getting Mount Vernon students, and nobody's going into Mount Vernon at this point. So
Okay.
that's what accounts for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we do go to residents only, Mount Vernon's percentage increase would go up
Yes.
0.94%.
Which accounts for those 13 students.
Okay.
Okay, but do remember that it's a 3-year rolling
Right.
average. So it would be averaged with the 2 previous years. So it probably would not go up quite that much.
Okay. So the residents only number is not a 3-year-old
No,
average.
no, this
It's
is
just-
just the current year.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So the question I'm bringing to you guys is the residents only, because that is kind of a change in the way that we have done it in the past. In the past, we've included superintendent agreements, and that's how we've continually built our budget. This would be a change if we go to residents only.
Mhm.
But I figured it was worth the conversation, because we've been talking about this off and on since I've been here, off and on every budget year.
No, thank you, Jay, for bringing up this discussion. I'm sure it's not going to be an easy one, but it's one we have to have. Patty?
Thank you. I just wanted to, I'm sort of a big picture person and want to understand, why are we talking about this question right now? Like what in this budget conversation does talking or asking this question of should we focus on resident only with this prorations question,
Right.
what does it get us? Or what do we lose if we do? You know, what,
Yeah. You might be able to, Bridget's working on numbers, so this is why we need an answer so we can.
So this is exactly what Bruce was asking for. He wants to know that total local dollar that needs to be raised on the green sheet has to be broken out based on the reorganization formula. And so I need to know how this board wants me to, whether we want to continue doing it the way we've done it in the past, which included superintendent's agreements, and included elementary students being counted in the school they attended, not necessarily counted in the school that they were a resident of. That's the way we've done it in the past. Or do we want to switch? But until I have an answer from this board, I can't break out the local dollars by town.
Go ahead.
I see your hand, but can I just follow up? Thank you for explaining that. I guess my real question is, why wouldn't we want to do this? Like,
Yeah.
what, I mean, maybe you can't answer that. Maybe it's only up to us, but I don't know enough to know why this would be beneficial or not beneficial. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I understand why you're proposing this and we're having a conversation about it, but I don't understand how I would vote, whether I would say thumbs up, this sounds great, or not,
Right.
because I don't know what the benefits of doing it are, or the problems with doing it.
So I guess to answer that, I'll say this piece and maybe it's off, and Bridget can kick me under the table if I'm off. So really, like, our formula is built on 50% valuation, 50% student count. So if you're looking to level student counts kind of across towns, then that kind of comes into play, because if you have a high valuation but low student count, that actually hurts you. Whereas if you have a high valuation and a large number of students, it actually helps you. So it's that playing with numbers, it's that 50-50 because they're equal. So it's, do we want this pocket of students still charged to, I'm just using Manchester because they're first, do we want to charge those students to Manchester when they're actually coming from somewhere else. So we're only looking at Manchester students. So, but you can see what the change in percentage is. It's not dramatic. It's just a matter of kind of the philosophy of where do you want to be going forward. Yeah, I hope that makes sense, Patty. Okay. David, I think you're next.
So if we vote to change it,
Oh, turn your mic on.
these questions help me also as a non-accountant person. So do I get it right that if we go with this new thing, Wayne would pay for one more Wayne's valuation, or what Wayne would pay towards the pot would be for one more student, but the total that we'd pay, the amount that we'd pay per student would go down by a tiny fraction?
That's so difficult to say the amount per student,
Yeah.
because you're looking at what we put out on the local dollar sheet. When I break it out by town, the per student amount down at the bottom is only based on the local dollars raised. And the local dollars raised have many factors that go into it. You know, did we get extra for subsidy? Did we get extra for tuition? You know, so it could vary greatly from year to year, what we're going to have for a balance forward. I mean, you know, so it's the local dollars, we do break it down to a cost per student, but due to the fact that basically what the state calculates a town must pay in local dollars, which is based on a per mill rate, and the additional local that needs to be raised, the state's amount is based strictly on valuation. And then half of the additional that needs to be raised is based on valuation, and only the other half, so it's like 1/3 is based on student count. 2/3 of what a town needs to raise is being based on valuation. And that really drives the number. And again, Wayne has a high valuation, low pupil count. It's you know.
Drives our number way high.
And then a related question for me is, this cuts or redistributes or cuts out the supers agreements, especially from other districts, but we're still going to have to pay as a group of towns, we're still going to have to pay the difference between what the state pays for those supers agreements and what it costs us.
Correct.
So under this thing, is that just being redistributed to different towns?
It's just a different way of coming up with the percentages. It's the percentages that I'm looking for. So, but for the supers agreements, we do get subsidy for students that are supers agreements, and we now are entitled to an additional amount. We don't know what that amount is until the spring. We don't have it for this, what we're going to get for this year yet. Last year, we got an additional $92,000 on top of our subsidy for those additional superintendent's agreements. And so I don't know what this year's is. I put an estimate of $75,000 because I figured we're down in students, so I assumed we're going to be down there. But as soon as I have that figure, I can plug in the real number. But yes, you know, the amount that we get from the state, yes, we do get subsidy on them, but then, which is calculated through the whole formula, and then there is a state local match. So yes, the towns do pick up some of the education of those superintendent's agreements.
From an accounting perspective, this system or the system that's been used for years doesn't make too much difference. It's just you need us to decide on which system you're going to use, or is one of them easier? And
I don't have a strong preference either way. I can tell you in the ED 279, which is the funding formula spreadsheet that the state gives us, when they finally calculate the total number of 100% of EPS, essential programs and services, then they break it out by town based on student count, because they break it out two different ways. They break it out on valuation, but they also break it out on student count. And the student count they use is residents only.
so this would actually be closer to their.
It would match what the state is doing, correct. But as you can see, it really doesn't, again, I'm trying to get to a percentage to use to calculate the local dollars. And in Manchester and Wayne, it's practically the same. It's a 0.01 difference. It's Reedfield and Mount Vernon that's changing quite a bit. And that's because Mount Vernon has a lot of students going basically to Reedfield.
No, they got to go back to Mount Vernon.
Go ahead, Wendy. I think you're next.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask about clarity when you present it to the towns on the revenue area draft.
Mhm.
If we go back to the resident-only percentages, will we be mentioning the superintendent agreement numbers as well, or at any place in this budget that's presented, or will that just be a number that's just, but you're going to go with the resident-only numbers to figure out the per student, per child formula? Does that
Well,
make any sense?
I mean, we don't have the sheet that I'm going to bring next week, which is breaking it out by town. So the first thing I need is a percentage that I need to calculate the local dollars on. But on the bottom of that sheet, and this is where Gary has talked about, the bottom of it, I show a per pupil amount. Now, in the past, we've always used the same per pupils that we've used in our calculation. But, there is a possibility that if you want to add the supers agreements into that, but again, if we're doing it by town, and those students really don't belong to any town specifically.
So that percentage, whatever it comes out to, those kids need to be divided against the total for the town. Because we all pay. Every town pays whatever they got.
Which is kind of what happens right now at the middle school and high school. Because you'll notice the middle school and high school superintendent agreements, we're charging 7 to Manchester, 7 to Mount Vernon, 7 to Wayne, 7 to Reedfield, and then 6 to Wayne. So the high school group, the high school, middle school group is just spread out as evenly as possible across the 4 towns. It's a little harder to spread them out when you've got 10 students on superintendent agreements in Manchester. It's hard for me to say, well, I'm going to charge 5 of those off to Wayne. That feels very slippery to me. So that's,
But you got 110 of those kids
right.
that you allowed in this year at a lower rate than what we're paying.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, so to kind of get the ball rolling, philosophically, I do agree with residents only, mostly because it's residents that make up the evaluation of the town, not the superintendent agreement kids that participate in the increase and decrease of the town's evaluation. So philosophically, I agree with residents only. So that's kind of how I feel. But I'm also very interested to see what any of the towns think, since this kind of affects you guys too.
Is there any town selectman that would like to speak to the question that Alex just asked about how you might feel about this? Is that Bruce again? Okay.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, so Bruce, why don't you go first, and then Catherine, if you want to go right after Bruce, that would be great.
Yeah, I like the idea of managing this, the number to residents only. I understand that because you're rolling a 3-year number, that the change we probably see that affects us is probably going to just gradually change. So because you're still going to average in the prior 2 years. So you wouldn't purely be on that resident only percentage. And do correct me if I'm wrong, Bridget, until you're into year 3 from today, if you were to adopt this. So I kind of like that. I also think that's probably what the public thinks it is. And I think anything you can do to break out the number of sending students or, non-resident students, at least to show that in good faith. However, the accounting's going to take place between the revenue and the expenses, of course. But I think just to have those numbers available for people to see is also important. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Catherine?
Hi. Thank you for having us tonight. And I agree with the last 2 speakers that I think it should be based on residents. It makes the most sense. It's the most transparent. Did I understand correctly that I heard there are 110 superintendent agreement students this year?
No.
Yeah.
No, 51.
It's 51.
51, okay. And you said that there are 27 being charged out essentially equally across all 4 towns.
Yes.
From high school.
So I think what Gary might have been getting at is if there are 60 or 61 or 51 of them, why aren't they all just being broken out across all the towns equally? That would seem to make more sense and to make it fair in something that isn't really fair because you're getting less money in than what it's costing us. So why not spread it out evenly? Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else from any of the towns like to weigh in on this? Dawn, you have the floor.
Oh, she's on mute.
Oh, I think you're muted, Dawn.
Your audio's off.
We're still not hearing you, Dawn.
I just don't, yeah, this feedback
We've got you now.
got me twice.
Oh, yeah,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm using my computer so I can see you and my phone so you can see me. My computer doesn't have a camera. So I guess I want to thank you for having us here. And it'd be nice to be here more often. I wish I could be. From my perspective, I think I would like to see some examples of what this would mean for the amount that towns are paying in and how it affects the distribution. The other thing, to me, it just makes sense that if you have students attending a school, then that count should go to that school. So if you've got Mount Vernon people going to Reedfield, then that count should be in Reedfield because that's where the services are being provided. But I mean, if I could see examples and of, what the outcomes would be, I'm not exactly 100% sure how it affects the calculations.
Thank you. Thank you, Don.
You can work up those numbers, right?
I think we could. Is it possible to do both, Bridget? Yeah. We can actually do both. So if that's what the board would like us to do, we can do that. Betty, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, Bridget, you said that the state does the calculation on residents only.
Yes.
And so if the state's doing it by residents only, I guess it just makes it cleaner if we did the same thing. And I'm not thinking about anything else. It's just that both counts would be the same. It would be easier for everybody to understand.
I agree.
All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex.
Is Mac still online? Mac Hardy? Okay. I was just wondering if you had
I'm
that
here.
question.
I was taking a nap.
I'm just picking on Mac. But to also get on, which I think it was Woodford or Woodsum, she mentioned that taking the total superintendent agreement was 51, and if you divide it by 4 equals 12.75. If that's something we could do, I'm just entertaining it, but anyways.
So at the board level, at least, what I'm kind of seeing and hearing is we should work this up based on residents only.
Right.
Okay. And we'll see if we can draft up what it would look like the old way, just as a comparison, just so that people can kind of see. Again, that 3-year rolling average plays into this. So we don't want anyone to panic and say, oh, we're going to go way up or way down because of that 3-year rolling average. As Bruce talked about, it would take time to actually be able to get that all the way through, so that it's purely residents, but certainly that we can work towards that. So those are the two things we'll do. We'll kind of focus on residents only, but we will also draft up just so that you have it as a comparison using the old, kind of the old formula.
And we also should have the, what the state rate is somewhere.
Okay.
And if you could look at the 51 divided by 4.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other? Good. Certainly, David.
Quick note on the 51 divided by 4. I'm not adamantly against it, but if you've got a small taxpayer and a large taxpayer, they should not be paying the same amount. For instance, I should not be paying the same. Well, let's just put it simply. Wayne has many less students going to our schools than Manchester or Reedfield. So why should Wayne pay the same amount towards the supers agreement students that a larger town does? That's not saying I'd vote against the divided by 4, but it's putting out another question that I think should be considered.
Yep. Go ahead, Patty.
What you just said struck something in me, David. Well, it makes sense to look at the students at the middle and high school with superintendent's agreements as shared because those schools are shared. That's all.
Yep. They'll work it up.
We will.
Any further citizens' comments regarding the budget?
Budget? Come on up. I apologize. I was thinking of number 3 coming up here, so.
Thank you for allowing me to spend a minute with you. I was going to do it from home, but I wanted to do a little presentation. My name's John Harker. I just had some questions about adding some more money to the budget in relation to COVID, and I didn't know, and I had a couple of questions for you, Jay.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just give my presentation based on that, and you can answer. All right.
Good.
If we're going to prioritize health and wellness for the teachers and the students, I just wanted to bring to light, if you didn't already know, you probably do, but that on masking, the big supercomputer in Japan, I don't know if you heard about this in the newspaper, but that supercomputer in Japan finally gave us the final understanding of why masks work and which ones work the best. And I'll provide this I'll send an email to you with a copy of this. But basically, the N95s, which I'm wearing right now, absolutely the best. They outperform any other mask. And the non-woven masks, as you have for the schools, the surgical masks are the next best thing. Supercomputer says so. Double masking does not work. Cotton masks actually do work fairly well. But polyester masks, those are woven, but they're polyester, do not work. So that's the bottom line with that. And I'll get to why I'm mentioning this in a second. On immunity, I think I sent you some folks earlier this summer, this fall and winter, the recommendations for improving your self-immunity, which is through vitamins, additional vitamins and such. To boost your immunity through nutritional supplements, exercise, reducing weight, so forth. So I've presented that to you before. And then thirdly, as far as the teachers and students go, you're already doing social distancing, which is the right thing to do in washing. But I'd like to know if you're putting any of this into true action for next year and in this budget, and this is what I have for you to spend some more money on. It'd be nice to require all teachers and students to wear the N95s and to purchase the N95s. And I did calculate that you could probably, if you gave each teacher and each teacher 7 masks, I think that's only $700. And there's another, I don't know how many teachers and administrators there are, but guessing there's 100 at $1 a piece if you buy them in bulk. And the point here is that they're the best. They'll protect the teachers the best. There's 7 of them. And the other thing that we fail to do a lot is you have to wear 1 a day. You have to take that one home and actually disinfect it. And the way you truly disinfect it is you put it in a plastic bag and you put it in sunlight for 7 days. And that disinfects it so you could reuse it again. We need that process if you're going to really protect the teacher. So 7 masks, $700. If you provide N95s to all the students, I think it'd be about $7,000 if it's 1,000 students. So I didn't hit that one too bad. So $7,700, if you could add that to the budget, that would really protect the students and really protect, because on this chart here, the N95s are way out here as far as protection goes compared to others. And they are available now. The other thing is about nutritional supplements and immunity. Now, I put a little packet together here of the nutritional supplements that would get you a good boosted immunity that could be given to the teachers and the students. And that total package right there per day is about $1 a day. But packaging it all up, getting bulk prices, if you had the health center working with the doctors to make sure this is accurate information, that could be put together. The students could even put these packages together and get these to each of the students. And if they did this on a daily basis, they would boost their immunity very well. Total cost for doing this would be about $20,000 for the year. Then the other thing is I just want to make a point. In India, they have a package like this that they give out to people on a regular basis for them to help boost their immunity. And they actually add ivermectin in with that. Ivermectin is still in a questionable area right now, but they provide that to their people on a regular basis that need it. They have a little packet like this, easy instructions on how to use them and when to use them. So that's the idea. $20,000. Then lastly, I didn't know if the health center has rapid test kits. They do? Great. Then I don't have to go there. You can get the new ones for $50 each and $2,500 if you get enough of them. So you have them, that's great. That was one of my questions. So those are my suggestions it would probably totally add up to somewhere around $30,000 to put all that together, if you haven't already done it, Jay. And it's just a suggestion for you. I think it would go a long way to helping to keep you even additionally safe than what you might be doing now. And as an education component for the students, it would be wonderful if they were able to utilize this, put packets together and understand the concepts behind it. So thank you for taking your time. And maybe you can just answer for me those couple of questions right now if you have some of this going on already. Appreciate it.
So I have a question for you. Last time you were here, you said $5,000 for
Nutrition
Nutrition.
curriculum. Yeah.
Is that for a book or how you plan on doing that for 5,000?
What I would suggest you do is hire a dietitian and a nutritionist on a contract, small contract. And in fact, there was one here that she had her kids in the school a while ago. I know of one also in Livermore. And what I would suggest you do is hire that person to work. I'd be happy to work with it on a volunteer basis and work with the health teachers to put and the curriculum director to put the curriculum together. As I mentioned before, the curriculum is already there. The activities for each of the curriculum components from K to 12 are already there. There may be, and I know there are teachers here in the school that already are doing certain activities that actually meet the curriculum requirements. So you just build that into what's already here. But you have somebody on contract to pull that all together for you. That's what the 5,000 was for. I'd be happy to work on a volunteer basis to help guide if you needed it. Don't think you'd need much because I know these dietitians and nutritionists know their stuff. And they know the Wisconsin curriculum and they know the California curriculum, which are the two that I had suggested you look at.
So is this a paper document somewhere that,
Yes.
who has it?
Well, I gave all this information to Becca a long time ago. You had asked me before to go to the Health Advisory Committee. I worked with them for a couple of years. And I provide all that information to Becca. The curriculums, this is 3 years ago now. I'm on my 7th year on this idea to try to make this happen. And I'll just keep working every year, you know. Third time's a charm. Oh, well, we're up to 7.
I just asked Jay, he said we'll have to look for it. You have it readily available?
Oh, absolutely. I can email it to you tomorrow.
Please email it to Jay,
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
because we were trying to discuss that last week.
Okay.
And we got nowhere because we didn't know if we're looking for a book or looking for something else.
Yeah, I believe I saw the notes on the meeting, so I emailed a couple of folks here some additional information, but I'll send you all that curriculum stuff. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Alex.
So thank you, John, for coming in, and I'm sure we'll be happy to explore some of those options. Is there elderberries in there?
Haha, it's interesting you say that. There aren't, actually, there are elderberries. If somebody starts to feel, I know, you love that one. If somebody starts to feel.
My family grows elderberries, that's why.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know. Yes, elderberry syrup is an excellent prophylactic to, again, to boost your immunity, to keep you from getting a worse case of COVID. Typically, they wait till if you feel something coming on, immediately add that to your supplement. Yeah.
And there's no kale, right?
Sorry?
And there's no kale in there, right?
No, not at this point. No, sorry. If you don't.
No kale, no good.
Yeah. But one thing you need to know about kale, you can cook kale any old way you want. It maintains its total phytonutrient capabilities, whereas a lot of other vegetables, if you cook them, their capabilities go down. But kale's a nice one. Even though you don't like it, I understand.
Go ahead, Patty.
Thank you for your suggestions. I just had a quick question about the last piece about the nutrition curriculum. Don't we have a K-12 health curriculum? So nutrition is a part of it, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that okay, thank you.
It is, if you pull it out separately, it's totally outdated. I'll give you just one example. I asked a high schooler, I said, tell me, did you learn the pyramid or did you learn the my plate? For those of you who don't know, USDA did the pyramid back in 2008 to 2010-ish. They changed to my plate. She said, oh, we learned the pyramid. I said, you bet you did, because that's in your current curriculum. Totally outdated. Totally outdated.
Thank you very much, John.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to come in. Thank you.
Any other additions or adjustments to this agenda? The citizens' comments? Not budget related?
Hold on, let's make sure anyone online have public comments that's not about the agenda, excuse me, about the budget.
Don't see any. Additions or adjustments to this agenda by any of the board? See none. Student petition.
So I'm going to invite Isaiah Braden. Did I say your name right? Braden, right?
Barden.
Barden. Okay, I apologize, Isaiah. To the podium. He's he was kind of the lead. I'm going to say the leader. I hope it's okay to say that, Isaiah, when it came to the petition. So he is going to highlight some from his petition, and then he would love to have conversation or answer any questions that the board may have. Isaiah, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Wow, this is weird. I've never spoken into a microphone before. Yeah, this is good. All right. So thanks for letting me speak tonight. That being said, you guys all know why I'm here. I really don't quite agree with the decision to be back in school 5 days a week. It needs to be said we're in a pandemic, and the bottom line is more exposure is bad. We have a lot of senior teachers in the district who are at a higher risk to this exposure, and there are a few that I've talked to are already having issues with how much they're in school. And, teachers are going to be there every day with this, regardless of if you have cohorts splitting up the students. There's going to be more exposure for them, and that makes the risk higher. On top of this, we do have vaccines now, but we're not sure if they actually do anything. There's still a lot of testing being done on that. It's great to think wishfully, but we don't know yet. These Wednesdays so far have been really helpful to teachers. Teachers use Wednesdays for prep work, for catching up with students, and probably a lot of other things that I don't know about because I'm a student. A lot of teachers that I've talked to have told me that, they don't want to go back on Wednesdays because it places an unnecessary burden on them. For students, remote Wednesdays have been just as important this year. For me personally, I have about 4 to 6 hours of homework every Wednesday that I have to spend catching up on. And if I had to go to school, I wouldn't have that time. And I know a lot of other students who may not be as disciplined as me. They use these Wednesdays to get one-on-one help and catch back up on the work that they're missing. So it's really useful for them too. And then there's other students that I've talked to who work, some of who they support their families through their jobs. And the schedule that they followed this year has allowed them to do that really well because they have, 3 full days of the week now that they can work. And when they have to go back to school on Wednesdays, they're not going to have that opportunity anymore. So, remote Wednesdays serve a lot of functions. And although seeking normalcy is a worthy endeavor, I want to remind you again that we are in a pandemic and, nothing is normal right now. Like, I've seen so many of my classmates burning out because they just don't know what their schedule is going to be. There's no clear routine for them. They've become reluctant to learn or even come to school at this point because it's hard. It's really hard to come to school this year. And, you know, I said it once, but I'm going to say it again. This is not really a time for normalcy. But something we do need is consistency. And, you know, this is something that's worked pretty well so far this year. Having these remote Wednesdays, we've only had 23 cases last time I checked anyways. So yeah, my question is, why change now? We've made it this far. You know, we finally got used to this routine. It kind of seems normal now, but you know, why change it? We're almost done. So yeah, I guess that's all. Thank you.
So Isaiah, I appreciate you coming. I looked at all your letters that you attached. Yours stand out to me, being working all the time. I did the same thing when I was a child. At 9:30, I was up at 6, and at 6:30, I was at work. At 2:30, I had to be back. We got out at 2:15. And I worked till 6 p.m. that night. So I understand about work. And it's not easy to do work. And if you don't grow in the work, then you fail. So the work has to be good. The burnout that we see, that we have, and the amount of kids that we have high school kids that are going 5 days a week because they can't handle the 4-day a week. Right now, we got over 50 of them. The other thing is when I went through these documents, your anonymous response that you have. In industry, if this was turned in industry, it would be tossed in the corner. It would be looked at, it'd be read, it would be researched. But when you take Christ's name in vain, like it was on the second page, it goes nowhere but the whole.
Okay.
And I think when you publish something, you got to be, I ask Wendy to look at mine all the time, I'll be honest with you, because if I don't have a second reader or a third reader, I might put something out that would scare people or do something, and I don't do that. Then I went on in Thomas Pooling. I thought he was very interesting. He's a halfway student, one way or the other. But the experience that I got from work and who paid, we had no money. The blacks paid for my food a lot of times. I lived that way. But where have I been? And have I grown from that? And that's what I'm going to ask you is, have you grown and say, wait a minute, I'm learning more by what I'm doing than what I'm not doing. And that's what you need to look at. And we have a lot of kids in this school that are not growing. They're going backwards. The high school I don't see changing this year, but all the other schools will be changing, is the way I see it. The other thing is, by the time I got 18, I was exhausted. I was 6'1", weighed 160 pounds. And the day I graduated, the next day I was in the Navy. And I did that for a reason. I had to get away from my family because they didn't realize how far down I was mentally and everything. And when I went into the Navy, I had so much spare time in boot camp. I can't believe everybody was complaining and everything. What do you want done? Okay, it's done. You get it done. That's what work is. Hopefully you learn something from the work and jobs that you have. But I could tell you that I was able to fill out the tax return for a business for California. which is 28 pages. And all we have was 3 pumps. And I could tell you that I could tear down anything and put it back together on a car at those days. So maybe one of the things that we could do for you is, I'm telling you, my neighbor has been involved, and I've been involved with my neighbor. And I went with, and I'll go with you to talk to Dr. Conway. And I'll sit down with you and get this squared away so that you get what you need. Because there are other kids that we have to look at. There's more of a population. There's over 300 kids that we have to look at and take care of. So I'm willing to help you, and I'm willing to discuss anything with you. But I have to say, as a board, we voted because of the total population. How many people are failing? How many people are not going? But you're allowed to come to this board meeting anytime you wish and speak. And I want you to come. Make sure you come. Because it's very interesting. You saw the discussion tonight. Who pays for the kids? Your family or some other family?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? These are the type of questions when you're in business, you ask. And that's why I have. So Wendy has one of our board members asked that we read a comment from her.
Okay.
Manchester School Board. Excellent. Thank you. Manchester School Board Representative Kim Bowie, who could not be here this evening, asked me to read this tonight. She says, I appreciate your willingness and courage to speak to the board this evening about your feelings toward more in-person learning. As one of the people who voted for more in-person learning, I just wanted to be sure you know my absence this evening is for a family matter and in no way indicates that I do not take what you and the other students have to say seriously. You should know I read all student letters, the ones sent by Student Council in January, as well as the ones sent with the petition. Although you feel the vote did not go your way, I assure you that does not mean I didn't listen to what you had to say in your letters. When I vote on issues, I do so taking into consideration all voices, as well as any independent research I feel is necessary to make an informed and educated decision. I truly appreciate your involvement in the process and feel your actions will take you far in life. Sincerely, Kim Bowie, Manchester Representative. Thank you.
That was so kind of her. Thank you. Well, before I answer any more questions, if there are any, I would like to speak to, is it okay if I call you Gary?
Gary Carr? Yep.
Yep. Okay. I was more, the reason that I actually wrote this petition was because students were voicing their concerns to me.
Mhm.
I personally have had somewhat of a difficult year, but like you said, I have learned a lot from it. And I actually appreciate having that difficulty because it's made me grow as a person. But I've seen a lot of other people not do so well with this, and that's my reason for coming here to speak tonight. So,
No. And we
thank
should
you.
work for you,
Yeah.
and that's what I want to happen. And I'm willing to go see Dr. Conway. Jay could set it up, and we can sit down and come up with a solution for you. How's that?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead, Rebecca.
I just want to say that I appreciate all the work that went into this because you could have very easily just fired off a strongly worded email, but you used a process and there was thought that went into this. And I really, really appreciate that. And I also want to encourage you to use your voice in the future and to continue to be involved with your community because I think that's really important for young people to get involved. So I just thank you so much for being considerate and coming to speak with us and for being respectful I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having
I'm very
me.
proud of you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, David.
Had a couple of questions for you.
All right.
I want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank you for representing, as the petition showed, quite a few students, not just yourself. I think we need to, as hopefully the administration is, listen to all students and work to meet all their needs. Individuals need their needs addressed as part of that process, but you can correct me, but I think you were, as you just said, speaking for many. Questions. One of the questions in one of the letters addressed the question of, or the concern of whether students and the student council are listened to, respected, or are they just dismissed? And I wanted to ask you, are there ideas or avenues that you, other students, perhaps the student council have that would help bring your ideas, your concerns to us in a regular way that you folks have had? Because I think you would have better ideas. For instance, all I came up with was, well, could a student, like, as we have the student reps give us reports on what the different schools and groups are doing at most meetings, would it be possible for one of them or a student council rep to come and similarly be able to share with us questions, concerns, ideas? But that's just one idea I came up with. I would want to hear from the student body in some way of what they feel would help to bring, because I know from, working with the rest of the board and from the administration that they want to hear from everybody involved, that they hear from the teachers. And this relates to COVID and to other things. They hear from the teachers, the staff, the families, and we in the board often hear from the families too. But we need to be hearing from the students. And I can easily see how people feel that, especially students feel that they're dismissed or negated. I felt that some of the comments in some of our discussions over these past months, particularly in relation to the survey that was taken, actually did, from my impression, dismiss, some of the student concerns as well. They just don't want to do the work or be here. And I felt that was, I don't think any group, whether it's a religious group or an ethnic group or a group like a board or a political orientation group, feels very good at all if someone just relegates their whole group as being of a certain way. And that happens in every circumstance. And it's, anyway, sorry, I'm spouting off. And then also the question of, are there things that you feel and the other students feel are going right, whether it's with the COVID response, with communication with the administration and the board or the teachers? We want to hear that too. It's always nice if something's working. And I'll back off. Enough of my ranting.
Well, thanks, David. Well, to kind of speak to your first question, I'm not really a part of any of the school government or anything like that. This was basically, I had an opinion, other people had it, so I went through the process to be heard in the best way that I could. I definitely would like to look into that further and maybe talk with I don't know, our student body president or, people like that and see what ideas they have too. I personally don't think I'm informed enough to, speak more about that. And as far as your second question, I would give the same answer. I would definitely love to bring that question to people who could answer it though. So thank you.
Go ahead, Alex.
So I have actually a quick question for you. Have you taken WAP?
I'm in it this year.
You are in it this year.
Yeah.
I have to say, during my time, which I know makes me sound old, I graduated in 2015, so I'm not that old. And I graduated from Maranacook. And my high school WAP teacher, which is Miss Emerson, sadly she's not with us anymore. I believe every WAP kid probably deserves a Purple Heart because that class was rough, 100% rough, and we didn't have to contend with COVID. But my point being was that we suffered a lot. We had a lot of 10, 11 o'clock p.m. doing homework, trying to get it all done, cram it in like 3 chapters. It was rough. But I have to say, and I've told Miss Emerson this after she left with us, I told her that during those times where we were so frustrated with her, we were so mad, you know, we complained a lot. Too much homework, too many quizzes, too much tests. But we learned. And what we learned was 2 things: stress management. And when you learn stress management, you can quite literally conquer the world, because more and more work you can put on yourself and get it done, the more you can achieve. And the second thing we did was we learned skills that we actually were able to apply during college. And I was totally surprised when it came to critical analysis. She drilled this into our brain. Critical analysis, pick out key themes, patterns, and look at qualitative and quantitative data. And that's what she did. She just drilled it. And as a result, we were able to apply all this work to college. And actually, I'm really able to apply it during my graduate degree and master's, which I still have a 10-page essay due tonight, but apart from that, I really would encourage the students to reflect that they're suffering now, the workload is horrible, and, you know, I totally agree. It's going to be rough, but learn from it, because when you look back on it, you'll be like, oh, I really did learn a lot. I really understood the stresses and the challenges, and I'm able to utilize and build upon it. And that's my experience. So I hope the students that wrote this petition can also have a similar experience as well when it comes to this, that you work really hard now and it does reward in the future. It truly does. So that's my comment.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. That gives me some hope. Kind of just my situation, I've had to take, WAP, I've had to take APUSH and honors physics asynchronously this year. So I've taken both of those classes without ever going to a single one, because I'm also in CAPC. And I've somehow managed to keep good grades in those. So
and keep doing it, because you will go above and beyond, and you will be a high achiever, and you'll get that high salary with that yacht and everything you need. So believe me, just keep going. Just keep going.
Someday. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Isaiah, I just want to echo what other people have said about thank you very much for coming in and speaking to us. It's very important to us that we do hear the voices of the students. And if students like you can come forward and speak with us, we really appreciate that. And the way that you did that in your respectful manner it really shows a lot about your character. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
So Isaiah, I noticed you've taken honors physics and AP history.
Yeah.
And so that means you must be getting an AA degree before you leave here?
I hope.
Are you in the program at Thomas College?
The what scholar?
I think he's asking if
Yeah, I'm in dual enrollment.
Okay.
I will not be graduating with a degree as far as I know, but
That's good, but you got the credits. That's
Yeah.
what counts.
that is what counts.
Okay. We take the eyes in.
Thank you.
And, get a hold of Jay and he'll set up.
Yeah.
for you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Isaiah, for being here tonight. It's greatly appreciated. Well done.
Well, thank you. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to me. I appreciate it.
And Isaiah, you're certainly welcome to hang around, but we also understand if you've had enough of us talking about budgets and numbers and all that kind of stuff. So whatever you decide is totally fine.
Oh man, I'm normally in bed by now.
Same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a
Thank
good
you.
night, guys. Bye.
Thank you. I move to approve the minutes of March 3rd, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Okay, let's see if I can do this without, Wendy,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
I move to accept the teacher resignation effective June 30th, 2021. Elementary physical education teacher Nancy Martin with regret.
Second.
Any further discussion?
And just so you know, the letter is in the, in your folder labeled as 6B.
Roll call.
Roll call. Wendy,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes, with huge regret because Nancy has given so much to our district.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Again, unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
I move to accept the contract for school privileges grades 6 through 12 between RSU 38 and Fayette School Department as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
So I have a question.
Of course.
When you issue the cost per child to these people?
When the state tells us what their tuition rates are set at.
Okay, so that these are also, all right.
Yeah, these are all tuition rates. And just so you guys know, what we're voting for is a process rate. So the first step is approval by the board, which means this will then go on a warrant article at our annual business meeting. So that's the second step in order to get to approval is we have to bring it to the annual meeting. But it starts with the board
And then
being
goes-
able to agree to move it forward, so. Yep, of
Go
course,
ahead.
Alex.
So when I look at tuition revenue, does this correlate?
So you're talking about on the green paper?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's the increase that you see there. A lot of that on the revenue side is due to the increase in the number of Fayette students coming forward.
Which
We
is-
already have an existing contract with them, so this is basically a renewal of
The
that
renewal of the
contract.
contract.
Right, so this contract establishes this number.
Right, exactly. That helps in establishing it. Yep.
The thing about access to Jay
Yes,
and
it is not, right. It is not an exclusive contract. It's a non-exclusive contract. We're one of several. I think they've got 3 or 4 there, Winthrop being one, Spruce Mountain being another one. So, yeah, I think Betty has a
Go ahead.
question also.
Has this contract changed from the last one that we approved?
We updated some language. We worked with Drummond and Wilson, updated some language around special education. The one thing that we asked for, because it would help in our budgeting process, was moving up the timeline of when they would notify us for their intention to come to Maranacook or start in Maranacook at 6th grade. We had that set. It was really, really late, and we actually brought it up to January with the final announcement happening in the March timeframe, so that way we can plan budget-wise. So that was on our end. And then again, there was quite a few things language-wise that needed to be changed, but it didn't change the content. It was just the language that needed to be updated.
any further discussion? Roll call.
All righty. Wendy,
Yes.
Kathy? Yes. Alex?
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
I move to award the district switch and wireless upgrade to Systems Engineering as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
So I went through this document very close. Because in my other position, we ran into a major problem. Somebody hacked the computer. And so now we have a redundant computer. So when goes into one, 5 minutes later, it goes into the redundant, so that if we ever have to back up, we have it. We did not pay the fee that they were looking for. It was millions of dollars. But on this document, one of the things I noticed is they never list their address. I can't believe it on the page. But as I go through it, I'm really concerned about what we have set up and where I'm at is the computers. They have no access to our data and they can't sell it or use it. And so by having two computers running simultaneously, to avoid the hacks, put us out of business for 3 days. But I don't see anything in here that limits that they can tap into it. That was one of the comments. Then I looked at some of the other things in here. System engineering does not perform structural wiring or access, so that's fine. So we need to have a third party. How about weekend work when they're not around? Are they going to be available for you? It's not in this contract. And then on page 20 of 31, it says statement of work, inventory, store, and handle appropriate hardware. Who's doing it? I mean, I think somehow you need to lock down who's doing what so that you can hold their feet to the fire when you need them. That's what I'm thinking. And then I looked over here on page 21. It says geological network filtering is client specific, is not part of the standard delivery. Analytic reporting and delivery are client specific, are not part of the standard delivery. And it says system engineering will have space to rack equipment. So it appears like you're going to have to do a lot of things. I don't know if you realize that. That's what I'm worried about.
May I comment?
Huh?
May I
Comment
comment?
anytime you want.
Okay. So if you look at, well, the pages kind of got cut off on the page 19 of 31. You'll notice that there's a Cisco MX 250 network security firewall appliance. That's our security.
Okay.
That is above, it's an SEC appliance, which means it's a higher grade than what most schools have. We also have a security license and support for 5 years with cloud managed security appliances, which are redundant because when you have cloud security, it's off our site and they have redundancy built into those. As far as the scope of the work, systems engineering actually came to our schools, looked at what we had, especially at the high school and the middle school for our racks. It's going to be a pretty similar situation because we have Cisco switches right now and we're upgrading, but they definitely have seen the way our network is working right now. And based on that, put this together for us. There are things that we are going to do ourselves because we know how to do that and we don't have to pay somebody to have to do that. So if you would write your specific concerns to me, Gary, I can get clarification on that.
Well, if you look at page 27, they don't, right underneath their name, they don't even put their address. I can't believe it.
Okay. I'll get you their address. Would you like that?
No, it should be in the document is what I'm saying. Somebody, you're not around and Jay or somebody else has to come in and do something.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of contact with them.
Okay.
Don't you worry.
Yeah, but I
And
want,
there'll be lots of points of people
the
who have
document should
contact.
have
with
that
them.
in there. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
I mean, I just can't. Yep. Go ahead, Alex.
No, thank you, Diane, for putting this all together and everything. Could you just kind of quickly review how everything's being costed out as far as the 60% going to the E-rate with 40% funded locally? So the 40% being funded locally is going to the ESSER fund. Okay. So 0.
So on the local side, right,
Okay.
because the other 6, so that 78,000 is roughly that 40%. So then the other 60% is being funded through E-rates with that. So we're not asking anything. It's not in the local side. It's a one-time expenditure for the network. So it's not something we'll have to go back. This should carry us probably,
At least 5 years and,
5 years, right? Yeah.
And we do have the MX250 Advanced Security Appliance is only being funded at a 50% rate through E-rate. But we still went with it because we felt like security was super important. And then we do have an $8,000 per year contract so that we can contact systems engineering if we need help. Right now we have independent contracts with other network people who, when we have something big going on, we need help with that. We have those people that we can count on that should replace those other independent contracts. What happens with these independent contractors is that you call them up. If they have time, they get to you. It's not like this systems engineering is going to be they're our people, right? And this is their network. They put it together. They're going to know what to do. And the layers of visibility in our network are going to increase so much that we'll be able to say, okay, second grade in Reedfield is having problems. We'll be able to get so much more data on that and be able to see exactly what's going on and isolate the issues. Right?
And also kind of keep in mind, and Diane, you can correct me if I misspeak here in any way, the MLTI project used to take care of our networks, and what they did is they shifted it over to schools. So what happened is whenever they did a refresh on laptops, they would refresh your net. They would come in and upgrade your networks and, fix whatever needed to be fixed. And basically what they're doing this time is they're saying, we're not taking care of networks. Networks are your responsibility. So that's kind of what necessitates this. And we want to have everything in place. So as soon as we can in the summer, we can get started on getting those network upgrades. So it's ready to go when the students are back in September. So that's where this is coming from. So
on page 30 of 31, you got ownership of work product. If you're paying for it, it should become yours, but it appears like it stays in there when I read the last 3 paragraphs. I mean, I just wondered if we should have an attorney look at this before we sign off on it and go through it, so that we make sure that it sounds halfway right, because it's not a cheap contract.
Right.
And it's personal data that's on a machine, and we want to make darn sure that the personal data stays with us. Go ahead.
Actually, you kind of asked my question, Gary. Just the private, I mean, I'm not sure what controls we have currently in place as far as data privacy, to ensure there's no data replication and so forth. So I guess that's my only question, or yeah, that's my only question.
So you're asking about security on our network for data replication?
Well, yeah, like, so any data that we generate through this network, does the company keep any of it? Or like, as far as like what Gary was kind of highlighting, the
So-
ownership of it?
So you're concerned that system engineers has access and will replicate our data? I just want to get really clear about what you're asking.
Yep. Or hold on to it. I mean, I don't know what extent or what other companies do as well. So that's my only question.
Right. So remember, this company is working on our network. They're not actually in our software programs. So that's really important to note. This is the actual physical network that they are building for us. So they're not actually going into, I'm going to use a random program here. They're not going into Power School. They're facilitating us being able to use Power School across all of our districts. That's really what we're doing. So they're not collecting data like that. That's not what their charge is right now.
So no data mining?
Right.
Okay.
They're providing hardware.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So what do we stand? Do you think it should go to the attorney or not?
I'm not super worried about it because this is a very reputable company and we can get like the information so that you know what this company is all about. This is a really good company, so.
Roll call.
Sorry, Wendy. Okay.
Yes.
Kathy. Yes. Alex.
Yes.
Patty.
Yes.
Rebecca.
Yes.
Betty.
Yes.
Gary.
Yeah.
And David.
Yep.
Unanimous. Thank you.
And thank you, Diane.
Adjourned.